You are listening to a message from CrossPoint Church. For additional information, please visit our website at crosspoint.family. We hope you enjoy today's message.
This morning, I'm so excited, Vic, to have you here with us. This last week, CrossPoint was able to host the church network that we're a part of is called Advanced Movement. And if you are new, we're not a denomination. We belong to a network of churches that has a passion for two things: planting churches and strengthening churches. And so we hosted 13 pastors here this week just for a time of refreshing, encouragement, and just strategy for the year ahead and just all the different things God's doing. It was an incredible week together. And so we had asked Vic, who we've known for several years now, to, hey, why don't you stick around while everyone flies home to be with their churches? Could you stay here and hang out with us this weekend and bring the Word of God? So it's just a joy, Vic, to have you. We miss Tanya, your wife was here with us, but we're glad you're here.
So David and Beth, thank you for opening up your home and hanging out with your kids. It's been so wonderful. Loved being with you, and just the singing with you, worshiping with you this morning. What a great church! You gave me a little tour of your facility. Like, God's really on the move here. So yeah, be encouraged. From one church to another, it's wonderful to see the fingerprints of Jesus all over a CrossPoint here. So be encouraged. One of the things that we did Friday night, we went to go watch a White Sox game. All of us. It was really amazing. And you get the kind of people that you hear them before you see them. Hey, yeah. So there was a guy there, Chad. Is Chad here today? I don't know. Am I? Yeah, he's even wearing that today. Hey, what is the San Diego team called? Padres. There we go. I almost called them the Pigeons. Okay, I knew it began with a P. Clearly, I'm not a ball fan. Yeah, but it was great. It's just such courage. There's a Padre fan amidst a bunch of White Sox fans. No shame. And he strikes me as a man that you hear before you see him. I don't know. Am I wrong or not? I don't know if I've got the gift of discernment. But anyway, that's just an introductory story, not to shame him, but to say, buildings are a lot like that as well. Often you see a building before you get to a building, okay? And for the first year of my time in Canada, we moved to Toronto 9 years ago. And our first year, we stayed near the venue that our church used to meet in. It was an old Catholic church that the municipality purchased and turned into a theater. And, COVID came and we've lost that venue since then. But I do remember driving down Church Street, lots of church, in our particular church building. There should be a picture up on the screen. This is down Church Street. And as you see, right down in the distance, there's a steeple that sticks out. And so there it is, yeah. And so I just remember not arriving at the church building yet, but certainly seeing where it is. And that's how churches used to roll in ancient times. There was something about that steeple. It was the tallest structure in the community, the tallest structure in the city or in the town. And it said something. It says, this is a place where freedom can be found. This is a place where community and love and forgiveness and redemption can be found. If you don't know where to go, just look up. There's the steeple. It's very likely that when you get there, you will find all of the good things that I had listed, because Jesus people would be meeting there. Now, it's sad because these days, I don't think steeples mean that much anymore. Unfortunately, we don't see too many steeples these days in churches anyway. But I think that's a good thing. And if you've been a Christian for 72 seconds, you've probably heard this before as well, that, the church is not a building. How did I finish that? Hey? The church is the people. Exactly. The church is not a building. The church is the people of God. And that's right. And I mean, even for us, our church, we lost that steepled venue in 2020. And then now we are meeting in the basement sanctuary of another church. So we've gone underground, literally, as a church. No steeple, we're below the ground level as well. But it's not a problem. Why? Well, as you see on there, because the people are the steeple. This is what the trajectory of the Old Testament, it started in a garden where God wanted to walk with his creation, with his people. Then they messed up, and then he still wanted to be with his people, and he said to Moses, build a tent. I want to move into the tent as you guys journey. And then from the tent, it became a temple as they came into the promised land because he wanted to be with his people. And then Jesus came on the scene as the temple. He spoke of himself as now the meeting place with God. If you want to meet with God, you get through and to Jesus. And then Jesus was crucified, buried, raised, resurrected, ascended into heaven, and poured out his Spirit on us. And now you and I are the temple because God is in us. The people are the steeple. Can you say that with me? The people are the steeple. So let's read together Matthew 28. I just want to read this well-worn verse. It's the Great Commission. Sorry, not yet. Let's read Matthew 11 yet. My bad. Matthew 11, verse 28. Jesus said this, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. If you're not a Christian here today, maybe you're a guest here today, you and I are on the same boat. This is my first time here. There's firstly an invitation for you here. I want you to hear these words. I'm going to speak primarily to Christians today, but if you're not a Christian, this verse is Jesus inviting you to come to him. Maybe you say, yeah, I'm laboring. Yep, I'm heavy laden. Man, I could take a rest. I feel like I'm carrying a heavy burden. This isn't easy. Jesus is inviting you today. Hopefully, even as we've sung these songs, you have felt Jesus calling you together. I don't want you to miss this moment. And so there's Jesus saying, come to me. He's saying, come to me. But then in Matthew 28, he says to those who have come to him, now we're going to fast forward to that Great Commission. He tells them in verse 19 to 20, he says, go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you, and behold, I am with you. So he says, come to me, and then he says, go, but I'm going with you. I am with you always to the end of the age. Let me just pray very quickly. Lord, thank you for your word. Lord, as we look at this tension between coming to you and going, would you help us today? And would you help me, Jesus, to do justice to your word and just what I feel like you've given me to say, which is ultimately what you want to say to CrossPoint today. Lord, lead me as I speak. In your name I pray. Amen. So I want you to notice that Jesus said, come to me. He said, come to me. Jesus never said, come to church. And we live in a time where I think we can get that a little wrong. Where we think to be a Christian and to be evangelistic and to be people on mission with Jesus is to say to people, you must come to church. And trust me, I'm a church leader. I'm not against the church here. It's my job in every way, not in many ways. So I'm not against the church, but I want us to get the order right. He said, come to me. If there's any point to what we're doing as churches so that people would come to Jesus, he never said, come to church. He did tell the church, though, as we read now, that they must go into the world. In Mark chapter 6, it's another version of Matthew 28. He says, go into all the nations. He never said go to church. He told the church to go. And if Jesus told people to come to him, and then he told those who've come to him to go to the people, then he wants to use you, every one of you, to get people to him. That's the way he works. Why? Because you are the steeple. Say it after me. You are the steeple. You can point at your friend next door. If you want to just keep it between you and Jesus, you can say, I am the steeple. Either way, the people are the steeple. I hope you know that's the title of the sermon today. Okay, if you write anything down, you can write that one down. You are in a context. You are in a community. You're a very signpost, a signal to the love, the truth, and the salvation that is found in Jesus. I always say at our church, we aren't a go-to-church people. We're a church-to-go people. We are to-go cups, all of us. We're take-out believers. That's how it should be. We start on a Sunday, and then we go out there, and then we reconvene. We don't end on a Sunday. It's not the last thing we do. It's in many ways the first thing that we do. And of course, just a side note here, it obviously therefore takes a disciple someone who came to Jesus to follow him, to make a disciple. You've got to come to Jesus first. If you're just coming to church and you're not coming to Jesus, you're not going to be a great missionary for him. It's those who come to Jesus, disciples, followers of him, make disciples. It takes a disciple to make a disciple. You still tracking with me? All right, so that was the first one. The people are the steeple. But in the end of Matthew 28, I wanted you to notice that Jesus said, you come to me, then I send you out, but not alone. He said, I am with you. I will be with you. So I'm going to try and be very clever here, play on words. You are the steeple, but the next point is, Jesus is steeped in his people. Does that make any sense? Any tea drinkers here? Because you know what I'm talking about, okay? Or, you could flip it around. People that are steeped in Jesus, either way, is you're together. He wants to be on mission with you. And often in our culture, we can overemphasize the me and Jesus thing, It's just me and Jesus. Our quiet time, just the two of us. But actually, there's also the Jesus with me scenario. Because the point of meeting with Jesus, of cracking open the scriptures, maybe early in the morning or before you go to bed and you meet with Jesus, is so that for the rest of the time, that's why it's good to begin that way, is that Jesus and what he has said to you and how he's met with you, you take that with you into your day. Where you work and where you play. That's a song. Can someone put like melody to it? It rhymed so beautifully. I surprised myself. I love to paddleboard. It's one of my favorite things. And there's about 7 days of summer in Canada, so I really maximize those moments. And we have got Lake Ontario. That's about maybe a 10-minute drive. And there's just a few places that I can launch from into the water. And so I'm always looking for, unique entry points into the lake so I can go different places. And so I'm on Google Maps one time. And so, there should be a video up on the screen. I'm like, oh, that looks great. There's a parking lot right there. I can just walk across that little grass patch and I'm in the water. And it's a unique place I've not been before. And so I actually drove there and I was incredibly disappointed. And you'll see now why. Oh, dear. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how many feet that is. I mean, in meters, it's probably about 10 or so meters. There is no way I can get into the water there without hurting myself in some way. And so, what is so great about Jesus on mission with us is that he's not like, he doesn't understand your life. He's not like a Google Maps view where he doesn't understand some of the hurdles, some of the mountains, some of the complexities of the terrain of your mission field. He said, go into all the world, but I'm going to be with you. He's the 3D view. He gets it. Like, this is a difficult way for you to share the gospel. And so he's going to give you strategies to get around those hurdles or to get into the places. I don't want to stretch this illustration further than it needs to go. But I think you're getting what it means for Jesus to be with you. He wants to be with you in what you are already doing. The things that you are good at, the things that you love to do, he wants to be there with you. The work that you are already doing, where you are living, where you are playing. I love what you said this morning. It's like there's your thing, there's my thing, and there's our thing. He knows your thing, and he wants to do mission with you around that. Isn't that a great thing? I love the message version of that Matthew chapter 11 invitation. Eugene Peterson wrote a version of the New Testament, and this is how it goes. It won't be up on the screen, but it's basically Jesus saying, walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it, learn the unforced rhythms of grace, because I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Isn't that amazing? Is that he's not asking you to learn a whole bunch of skill sets and things to be effective for Jesus. Things that you think, oh, only David and the staff at CrossPoint, they're good at that, they know that, and I could never do that, I could never learn that. He's not expecting that of you. He wants to just be alongside of you, swinging that hammer, working on that spreadsheet, I don't know, paddleboarding on Lake Michigan, or fishing, or whatever it is, whatever your thing is. He said, I don't want to put anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Not an extra meeting, not an extra program. Just where you're at, what you're doing. Isn't that kind of Jesus? Would you let him in? The Great Commission, I've thought about this word commission. The word commission could mean two things. The word can mean to be entrusted with mission. He's saying, hey, I want you to do something for me. Could you do it? Yes, here you go. But commission could also mean be on mission with Jesus. Or, as we've just heard, Jesus on mission with me, He sends me out on a mission, but he's like, I'm going to come with. I'm going to come with. I enjoy to run as well. So paddleboard on the one side, and I like to run, and I like to run very far. I've done 2 ultra marathons in the last 2 years. 55 miles. Took me about just under 11 hours to complete them. Takes me a whole year to get ready for one. Okay, so I'm not that good. The cutoff time is 12 hours, by the way. So I'm no professional athlete. Okay, but this one particular ultra marathon I run in South Africa. It's called the Comrades. They have these, they call them buses. It's a group of runners that stick with a pacer. So in any other scenario, you would know there's somebody that's a pacer. You want to run a marathon under 4 hours. There's somebody with a signpost that says, sub 4 or 4 hours, and you just stick with that person. It's similar to that, only they call them a bus in South Africa, because it's actually, this ultra marathon I ran, nearly 20,000 people run them. It's one of the most unique ones. And so you have these, especially towards the end where I run, the slow people, you have these massive buses. And the pacer is called a bus driver. All right? And people who want to make it, they want to reach that cutoff time, they stick with the bus driver. But what is amazing is that many of these bus drivers run with a tambourine. 55 miles, friends. That's 11 hours of. Some of you in the worship team, it's like a nightmare. I don't know. Okay. Some of you are like, wow, I need to get into ultra running. They don't let me use the tambourine at church, but maybe I can, I don't know. But that is an example of the unforced rhythms of grace in many ways. If you want to make it to the end, you stick with that. And they sing songs, but that tambourine, that gets you to the end. And that's in many ways the invitation of Jesus. He said, I won't put anything heavy. Learn the unforced rhythms of my grace. Where you work, where you play, where you live, I'm going to join you and listen for my tambourine. That's what he's saying. It's going to get you to the end. Am I tracking with you? Yes, if we come to church once a week or twice a week, yeah, that's an event. But walking with Jesus is not an event, it's a lifestyle. And therefore, it must include where you live, work, and play. I've said it already. Every now and then I get invited to speak somewhere else, and I don't know why, but people always say, can you send us a picture and write a short bio? It's super awkward because I don't have somebody that writes biographies for me. And, now I've got to scroll through my recent pictures to send you something that I'm not embarrassed about. But I can with confidence write this one thing about me. I don't feel like I'm bragging or anything, but I love to create intersections in culture where Christians and the world, where culture meet. I love creating intersections for Christians and the culture. I love creating environments where believers in Jesus bump up against those who don't follow him. That's one of my passions. It's been a mark of my ministry for 2 decades. And I'd love to just share a couple of stories with you, not because I'm trying to show off or anything. Here's the thing. Often, we start working for churches as ministers, and our only friends become Christians. That can so often happen to people that are in the ministry, is before you know it, 1 or 2 years down the line, you're like, I only know Christians. And so it's been a passion of mine to there was a season in my life where I felt the Lord wrap me over the knuckles and saying, this is a problem. I want to send you out. And so I'll tell you a little bit of that journey. Is that okay? Not to take up too much of your time. I remember the first time I discovered this joy, if I can call it that. I was in South Africa still, and I'm also a musician, a little creative, and we would often put events up for our church so that they would invite their friends. And I just got so frustrated because after 10 events, generally speaking, the room would be filled with Christians and their Christian friends. And we would work really hard. Smoke, lights, acting, music, all of the stuff, preparation, spending money, printing things, invite people. And generally speaking, just a room full of Christians, entertaining them. And I just had enough. I just said, I'm not doing that anymore. And I remember going to the local shopping center, a mall, and I went to a coffee shop, and I said to the guy, what's your worst night? Like, you make no money. You wonder, why am I open on this evening? I'm losing money here. And they would say, it's a Tuesday night. I said, okay, can I book out your establishment Tuesday night? I guarantee you I will fill it up. Could you give us a set menu? I also just want to put up a little speaker. I'm going to do a little presentation, and someone else will do something funny. He said, yeah, it sounds like a deal. I mean, I lose money anyway. I'm not asking, so I go to our church and I said, all right, guys, we're going to do an event, not at church. I use our church building. We're going to be at Dulce's, that's what it was called, in the mall. And you can only come if you bring a non-Christian. And we just drew a hard line. Okay, you want to come? It's a set meal, so you pay money. All right, who are you bringing? No, I'm not bringing anyone. You can't come. Okay. Who are you bringing? No, I'm bringing my cousin. Are they Christians? Yeah, you can't come. Unless you and your cousin bring a Christian. We just made it like a rule. And I went to a comedian, and I said, hey man, while people eat, would you tell some jokes? Please, just don't go below the belt. That's all I'm asking. He broke the rules. He did go below the belt, but behind. He told poop jokes, which wasn't really helpful because everyone was eating. Okay, so we didn't get it right the first time. Some people laughed, some people puked, I don't know. And then I just came up after that and I just explained the best I could. I kind of hashed a Tim Keller sermon on the difference between religion and the gospel. That's it. And it was one of the most successful evangelistic events we'd ever done. It was like, for the first time, I'm actually speaking to a room that it's 50% plus non-Christians. It did something in me, it did something in our church. And I thought back to the day that I became a Christian. I remember in late high school, I became a Christian because a youth group invaded a third space. There was this derelict cinema, like a movie theater. High schoolers just came in, graffitied all the walls, threw a band on stage, and proclaimed the gospel. And I got saved in a third space. And I think somehow God in my DNA put that in there, that I love to do ministry in third spaces. In places that are in between. It's not like a church, it's not like an office, it's something else. No surprise, before I moved from South Africa to here, the last 3 years, I led a church that met in a comedy club in a casino. You can see a trend here, hey? And I mean, we did some wild things in there. I mean, once we preached a sermon on the biggest objections against Christianity in our city, and I asked non-Christian comedians to come up and spend 5 minutes taking the mickey out of Christians. And I just said, that's the term for like making fun of Christians. I said, just don't be disrespectful. If you have an axe to grind, stay at home. But if you can, we'll laugh at your jokes. We're humble people, we should be. We don't take ourselves too seriously. But then would you stick around and we'll tell you something about your culture, your objections against Christianity. We did that for a couple of weeks. Just things we could do in a church environment that we couldn't do. I mean, it wasn't a church, it was a comedy club, And you know what's so crazy? These comedians, they came in, the place was full like this. Most comedians don't have sellout. It's only the guys you see on Netflix with the specials. They came into a church, it's like a sold-out show for them. They're like, this is amazing. One guy saw the, communion cups. He's like, wow, you guys do shot glasses here as well. This is amazing, I'd interview them afterwards. I do a bit of Googling on their lives, and I affirmed them. Some guys have adopted, or they're generous, and we're just kind to them. And I remember the comedy club owner. He had the connections. I wanted him to be on the bill as well. Now, he'd been sitting at the back. There's a bar at the back, listening. He's often in and out. I came up to him and I said, hey man, would you and some of your friends come? I want you guys to, make fun of us initially, and then we'll speak to them. He said, man, I can't do it. I was like, oh, what a bummer. I would have loved to. I said, oh man, may I ask why? He said, well, actually, I've become a Christian. He couldn't with a clear conscience make fun of Christians. He was a Christian. I didn't even know that. I'm like, this is amazing, bud. When did this happen? Tell me the story. I had another mate text me while I moved to Canada at that stage. He said, hey, I just baptized Joe. Just want you to know. So amazing. Again, just the people are the steeple. Hey? Out there where people live, where people work, where people play. Now as a church, when I took over this church, we didn't have a church office. We rented a Sunday facility. Nobody knew about us really because it belonged to the municipality, the venue. And so I talked to our church about this idea of like, let's be in and amongst the community. Let's not just get a church office or a venue that serves us, but I love like you do with the pumpkin walk that serves the community. And so we built this co-work space. I want to show you what it looks like. It's called the Waypoint. That's my church office. There's a little room on the side, where our computers are, but that's open to the public. I think there's a picture next one. So people come in during the day. They use us to, high schoolers will come in. There's a high school just around the corner, and then people will work over there. That's kind of, I say if our church is an embodiment or if our church was a person, which the church, by the way, is the body of Christ, but if it was an actual person, the Waypoint is what that person's mission would look like. I always say our church office is an embodiment of our value, that people don't go to church, the church go to the people. Hey? So that happens over there. It's our church office. My personal passion, as I said, is to run. And so this is a little running group that I've started every Saturday. Anything between 30 to 50 runners show up. It's just down the road from our church office. And so after we run, so this is not a church event. This is me, my mission field. This is what I love to do. I love to run. And most of the people there don't know Jesus, but they come initially, and they come and they have coffee. I think that's the next, oh no, that's my wife. Next one. They come and have coffee in the Waypoint. And guess what happens? What is this? It's like a community center. Really? How do you pay for this? No, it's free. Free? How can it be free? Well, it's a Christian community of faith that donates to this. Really? What's that? It's a church. It's too late now. Now they've got a cup of coffee in hand. They can't leave. I undo, like they come in with an idea of what Christians and the church is like. They sit in there and then they go, okay, I got to have to leave that idea outside. This is something else. Tell me more. Tell me more. So many faith conversations. So many of those have joined our alphas. We run an alpha. If you guys are familiar with alpha, it's like faith conversations around a meal over about 11 weeks. We host them in there. Yeah, two slides back. Sorry, I'm messing you around here. 2 slides back when my wife is out there. We also love coffee, by the way. Passionate about coffee. And so my wife actually opened up a cafe called the Bean and Basket. There are American flags out there because they are filming a Jack Reacher episode on that particular day. Just so you know, yes. They blocked off the street. There's a car crash, and so they decorated her cafe to look like an American one. But it's in fact in Canada, just east of Toronto. And again, she has incredible faith opportunities. Now, we just make good coffee. We love coffee. But God is leveraging our passion for coffee and for creativity and for creating community to have faith conversations. There are often people that walk into the Waypoint that tell me, great sermon on Sunday. They're not in my church. I'm like, what? They watch our sermon online. They say to Tanya, yeah, I know you. I've been watching your church services online. It's not a church thing. We know Jesus is with us in our passions. He's with us in my running. He's with her in her coffee making. So now they have coffee. Next slide. That's the same running group having coffee in her cafe. She's doing a little special for the park runners on a Saturday morning. And we're able to, again, engage with all kinds of people around the gospel because they start to ask questions about who we are. And that's the thing. We don't keep Jesus out of our lives. That would be weird. I live for him. I work for him. We get to have faith conversations. I hope this makes sense. I think the scripture will be up on the screen. Acts chapter 17. Yes. This is what Paul writes. That God made from one man every nation of mankind. Or what Paul says, but actually Luke wrote this. He made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, in other words, where you live, that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find them, because yet he is actually not far from each one of us. Why is God not far away from people where they live? Because you live there too. Why is God not far away from people that you work with? Because you work there too. Why is God not far away from people that you play with? Because you play there too. And when they seem to reach their hand out to wonder if God is real, they should bump up against you. Does it make sense? And this is, for church leaders, this is a tough one because we can't program this. It's out of our hands. It's very easy to say we're going to do an outreach on March 16th, 7 p.m. Everybody comes here. We control that event. But when we send you out into your places where you work, play, and live, it's out of our hands. It's amazing to see what God does, but we can't govern that. Here's the thing. I cannot go where you live, work, and play. I don't have your passions. David likes a few things, but he doesn't like everything that you like. And so he's not able to do mission where you live, work, and play. Only you can do mission there. And I'm telling you, as a leader myself, this gives us great joy. It's our job to equip the saints for works of service. If you are in this church and you expect the church to do much of the missions work, put programs up, pumpkin walks, as good as they are, it's only part of the story. CrossPoint, I want to encourage you. I want you to think strategically about where you live, work, and play. Jesus said, I am with you. He has sent you out there. You can do things that staff members on this church cannot do. You could reach people they could never reach. Are you leveraging that for him? I was thinking of Mark chapter 6 when Jesus had just sent the disciples out without him. He sent them out 2 by 2. They come back. Amazing things took place. Demons cast out. Healings. It's amazing. And then they find themselves on a mountain. And Jesus, in a desolate place, Jesus is preaching and people are hungry. It's amazing. I wonder what would have happened if the disciples joined 2 and 2 together. They just came back, having been sent out, seeing God do amazing things. Here's a hungry crowd. They say, Jesus, there's a problem here. What does Jesus say to them? He says, you feed them. Imagine if they go, okay, we had just seen God move powerfully. Maybe they were the ones. I mean, and ultimately, Jesus multiplied it and he still gave them the things and they, rolled it out. But that's really how I see churches like. Yeah, we're preaching from the word. Yeah, I'm almost frothing at the mouth. Yeah, we come together, we sit on the God's word. But in many ways, as leaders, I say, you feed them. You go fish. You go get them. I can't be everywhere. That's why you're there. We take our cues from Jesus. And Jesus said that to his disciples at the end. Go now to all nations. Make disciples. Teach them what I've taught you. You do it. So I want to share quickly, I think it's 4 or 5 things with you, and then we'll be done. How do we do this? Number 1, we pierce the darkness. Right? You are a bearer of light. Jesus is wanting to shine through you. You're just a lamp. You just hold him, the oil, okay? But shine, let it shine. 1 Peter 2:12 says our conduct amongst the Gentiles, amongst those who do not know Jesus, needs to be honorable. Shine your light because you are an exile. You are an ambassador. You are part of his kingdom. You've been transformed from darkness or taken out of darkness into light, his kingdom. You're a new creation. The old is gone. Many of you would have picked up, I have an accent, right? I am from South Africa. I live in Canada. It's messed it up a little bit. I sound weird. But all of you should sound weird where you live, work, and play. You have an accent. You have a Christian accent. They should go, you're not from here, are you? I mean, I know you're from here, but you're not from here. You know what I'm saying? Like, we should let your light shine. Pierce the darkness. And if Jesus is truly with you in every step, there must be a difference between you and the people that you live, work, and play with. Must be a difference. If Jesus made no difference to your life, if you look exactly the same as the guy next to you who's an atheist, you live your life the same, you make your decisions the same, why should the atheist consider Jesus? What difference would Jesus make to his life or her life? I love in Ephesus, in Acts chapter 19, the gospel starts spreading and people were selling little idols, Artemis, and people were buying what the culture was selling. And then Jesus came in and people stopped buying what the culture was selling. And that's what your life should look like. Yeah, you might not buy little idols and put them in your pockets and stash them above your TV mantle, but there are other idols in our culture of materialism, of self-centeredness, individualism. Are you buying what the culture is selling? If it's an idol, it's going to make no difference. It's not going to change your life. Only Jesus would. Can people notice that? Can they see that you've not bowed down to the false idols of our culture? Can the world see how you respond to criticism? It's different. How you respond to stress and pressure at work? It's different. How you spend your money? It's not the same. How you talk to your spouse? You're a little kinder. How you raise your kids? Are you content with what you have? Are you quick to forgive? All of these things are trademarks. They are accents. You have an accent. My question is, do you have an accent? Because you're piercing the darkness with the light. But it doesn't just end there. That can sound like religion. Live a good life in front of others. No. Next P is proclaim the gospel. Yeah, we pierce the darkness, but proclaim the gospel. Because if there is no piercing the darkness, if you're not living differently, and then suddenly you talk about Jesus, they're also going to go, this is weird. This is bizarre. Where's this coming from? This is a shock to me. What, you're a Christian? No, surely not. So yeah, there must be piercing the darkness before there's a proclamation of the gospel. So don't just Be visible in the world, but be vocal about your faith. I want to rave about Dr. Sam a little bit. Dr. Sam, I was invited to his 40th birthday party last night. I gate crash every party I go to. Okay? Dr. Sam, are you here today? Or did you party too hard? Okay. We'll leave it there. Yeah, we'll leave it there. Let me take a sip first. I so appreciated his speech. He started off talking about God. But then he honed into Jesus. He wasn't shy. There were some Christian friends there, but some non-Christian colleagues. And his own unique way. He wasn't trying to be David. He wasn't trying to be someone else. He was just Dr. Sam, I would imagine, quirky, cool guy, weaving in Jesus in his speech. So beautiful. Not only visible, but vocal about the gospel. 2 Corinthians 5 says this, that, verse 18 to 20, God, through Christ, reconciled us to himself and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. That is, in Christ, God was reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them, and entrusting to us this message of reconciliation. Therefore, we are ambassadors. We have accents for Christ. God is making his appeal through us. We implore you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God. The reconciled are now reconciling, friends. You have been reconciled. Implore people. Proclaim the gospel. There's nothing wrong with the harvest, the Bible says. It's the laborers that are few. And in my life, the gospel rearrested me about, 15, 20 years ago. And I don't have time to get into that story, but it is important that you proclaim the gospel because you don't want people to think that piercing the darkness, living differently, equals being a Christian. Maybe you're here today and you're not a Christian. You think, yeah, I get it now. Christianity is living a good life. No, and you need to proclaim the gospel to set that record straight. No, our good works are a result of Jesus' finished work. You've got to talk about his finished work. The beginning of our work is because of the end of Jesus' work. If you don't make that clear, they're going to think, to be a Christian is to live a good life. I can only come to God if I clean myself up because you seem to be clean. That's how it works. Talk about the mercy and the grace and the forgiveness and the free gift of Jesus. They are not wages that you've earned. They are a gift. It's a gift that you have received. And your good deeds are acts of worship in response to having been forgiven, pre-cleaning yourself up. You get them? It's very important that we make it clear how we came to know and love the Lord. Okay, so that's to proclaim the gospel. 2 quick ones left. Pray. Pray, pray, and pray. In Christianity, so often, we get the order wrong. We talk about people to people, and proclaiming the gospel is talking to people about Jesus. That's what I've just talked about. But actually, you should also be talking to Jesus about people, the people you live, work with, and play with. Talk to Jesus about those people because he will empower you to talk to those people about Jesus. Pray. Pray the scriptures. One of the great things about Alpha is they encourage you at 11:02 to pray that prayer from Luke chapter 11, verse 2. Lord, may your kingdom come, may your will be done. I've seen that before. I've prayed in the morning at 11 a.m., 11:02, my alarm goes off. And I go, all right, I want to pray for these people I want to invite to Alpha. And at 2 o'clock, they walk into the waypoint. So often, it's just like, just pray. Just talk to Jesus about those people, and he'll open up opportunities for you to talk to those people about Jesus. Pray, pray, pray. And then lastly, pull on the net. Pull on the net. We're fishers for Jesus. Just tug at it a little bit, okay? What I'm really talking about here is that church isn't a cruise ship where there's eat as much as you like, programs set up for you. Nobody throws nets out on a cruise ship. CrossPoint is not a cruise ship. CrossPoint is a fishing boat, and you throw nets out on a fishing boat. Throw it out a bit. Tug on it. See what happens. See what happens. Ask people, hey, have you considered the claims and teachings of Jesus? So often, those are my conversations in the Waypoint. In my church office, I honestly think I interact more with non-Christians than Christians. And so often, they'll tell me what they think about Jesus. And I go, well, have you ever read his words? No, really. I'm like, so where do you get that from? I'm like, listen, let me give you one of his biographies. Here you go. I give them a gospel. Like, just from a horse's mouth. This is what Jesus said about stuff. I don't know where you got that from, but verified. Here you go. have you considered the claims and teachings of Jesus? I tug at it a little bit. Or I invite them to Alpha. Or whatever thing is going on. I love in Acts 26, Paul, he's so courageous. He tugs at the net. He's speaking to a king, King Agrippa. And he's explaining, he's giving his testimony, he's explaining some of the Old Testament scriptures. And then in verse 27 to 29, I don't think it's up on the screen, so just listen to me. I'll try my best to pronounce it in a way that you can understand. He says, King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? Now remember, Paul is on trial in a sense there, okay? So confident. Do you believe the prophets? I know that you believe. That's literally what he says. Verse 28. And King Agrippa said to Paul, in a short time, would you persuade me to be a Christian? And Paul's like, look, whether short or long, I would to God that not only you, but also all who hear me this day might become as I am, except for the chains, obviously. He's like, hey, I'm going to tug on that net. Have you tugged on some of the nets? Have you lost your courage, perhaps, where you find yourself working, living, and playing? You'd be surprised how the Lord just rushes alongside you. As you tug on that net, He's like, come, let's reel them in. Let's reel them in. Be courageous. Pull on that net a little bit. I hope you're encouraged.